الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Al-Mulakhis al-Fiqhi by Sheikh Salih Fawzan Hafidhullah Ta'ala, and we had ended before we parted before that we're discussing Kitab and Nikah, and of those in the Sheikh Rahimahullah that we had covered regarding the last thing that we covered regarding Al-Muharramat fi Nikah, that those group of people that it is not permissible for us to marry them. So we had gone through the discussion and clarify as what's mentioned in the book. So today inshaAllah Ta'ala we'll be starting the discussion where he titled Bab fi Shurut fi Nikah. Babun fi Shurut fi Nikah. So we discuss matters pertaining to some of those stipulations that people might make in their nikah. Aywa.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Qala ma'allif hafidhahullah. Chapter 6, page 379. Title: Conditions made before marriage. They are conditions set in the marriage contract by one of the two spouses to be fulfilled by the other in the best interest of the former. They are stipulated whether through the marriage contract or any previous agreement. Such conditions are of two kinds. First, valid conditions. According to the majority of fiqhis.
And then after they mention, they mention regarding concerning of those things that are covered regarding the bab of nikah, of the ahkam of nikah, where they discuss that there are certain shurut fi nikah. So we discussed previously what are referred to as shurut in nikah. So there's two things: shurut fi nikah or shurut in nikah. So shurut in nikah are those things that are the prerequisites of the nikah, that those arkan that must be in place for the marriage to be deemed as valid. Now we're discussing a separate topic, which is ash-shurut fi nikah. So these are shurut in the nikah, meaning that there's certain condition or certain type of certain type of conditions that have been set by one of the parties. So as he mentioned here, al-murad bi shurut fi nikah, where he outlined or explained as to what is intended by this, where one of the parties, where one of the the parties involved, the bride or the groom, that they may put certain stipulations in upon the other person, but they deem to be a certain maslaha or certain benefit that is attached to it, but it requires both to agree. So both are to agree upon this. So he mentioned a definition of this. Then he mentioned regarding concerning mahal. As for the mahal, or at what place or what time it is deemed as valid, it is done before the marriage. So an agreement between the couple regarding that these will be certain restrictions or conditions that they will set for their marriage. So it can be done before the marriage or at the time of the nikah, but not after nikah. So it is not to be done after the nikah. So that's concerning the shurut. Then the Shaykh mentioned that they have two types, sahih wal fasid. So you have different, slight difference in the definition regarding what is shurut of nikah, but we just stick to what is mentioned here by the Shaykh. Aywa.
They are stipulated whether through the marriage contract or any previous agreement. Such conditions are of two kinds. First, valid conditions. According to the majority of fiqhis, it is a valid condition when a woman stipulates that her suitor must divorce his first wife. As such, a divorce is in her interest. Other scholars view that such a condition is invalid, as the Prophet ﷺ forbade a woman to ask for the divorce of another woman so as to take her place as a wife. This prophetic forbiddance indicates the validity of such a condition.
And so he mentioned regarding of those, the author Hafidhullah, he mentioned as for the shurut fi nikah, he mentioned shurut as-sahiha fi nikah. So of those conditions that are put or agreed upon by both parties or put forward by one party, that and agreed upon by the other, that either these conditions have been met or been set, that regarding the nikah, the marriage, that of those that are sahih and those that are fasid. So of those that are considered to be valid, meaning concerning it is valid concerning that these conditions, that it is yalzim وَفَى بِهَا, that a person should fulfill them. So whatever agreements have been made as a stipulation, as a condition regarding the marriage, then if it is agreed upon by both parties, then it should be fulfilled. That person or the parties involved should carry through on them and fulfill them, and not to break them. So they mentioned that of those ones that are discussed between ulama, so he mentioned regarding of those cases that you find that majority of the ulama takes the position it is something which is valid, and others disagree on this, and that condition, if the wife was to stipulate upon her husband that he already have a wife, so he's already married, so durra is where there's another like co-wife, but she wants for him to divorce her, the other wife, and to remain with her only. Then they mentioned that is this something which is a valid condition, and in most cases that the one coming in, that put this requirement that your other wife divorce her and I remain as your only wife, is this a valid condition? So they mentioned that of the ulama who say it is something which is allowed to be done, and other of the ulama who say that it is something that is not allowed, Then I mentioned regarding addition that they say it is something which is batil, so it's an invalid condition if placed upon the husband. So according to the ulama, is an invalid condition and is not valid. So the husband does not have to fulfill this, nor to give it any attention, which is she stipulating, the wife, that he, the husband, to divorce his other wife and keep her as his wife, when the one who's making this condition. So they mentioned that they said that this is also that it is something which is invalid, also the form of dhulm that is being placed, and also create udwan, so the form of dhulm, oppression upon another person to end that marriage and to remove that wife that may be a good wife, and also udwan, and also transgression, and also a form of transgression with a person that they are overstepping their boundaries, overstepping the boundaries of others. So the mention is not a valid condition regarding this. And of those who take this position from the Hanabila, we have Ibn Qudama, so the Sahib of al-Mughni, that is of this position. So Ibn Qudama, that is of this position, and also Ibn Uthaymeen of contemporary. So Ibn Uthaymeen that also agree with this, that it is not a valid condition and it is not to be fulfilled, And I mentioned the reason, one, that you find texts from the Sunnah that says opposite this, that one, the wife is not to do so, and second, also it create fasad, wa dhulm between a husband and his wife. So based upon this, that type of condition is not valid. And Allahu Alam, that second opinion seems to be more correct, contrary to the view taken by, as I mentioned, in the Akthar or Aktharin, that majority or most of the ulama, they do hold it to be valid. But Allahu Alam, that the view that says it is not, based upon the hadith that mentioned this, and also that regarding concerning that the fasad, the evil, and transgression that come from such requests or condition. Aywa.
Among the valid conditions made by a woman before marriage is when she stipulates that her suitor must not sexually enjoy a slave girl or marry another woman after their marriage. This is a valid condition that has to be fulfilled by the husband, otherwise she has the right to invalidate the marriage. In this regard, the Prophet ﷺ said, "The worthiest conditions to be fulfilled are those that make it legal for you to have sexual relations, i.e. the conditions set in the marriage contract."
So this is another of those conditions that is mentioned regarding of the ulama. Also a discussion regarding that this matter regarding if a wife was to request upon her spouse or husband to be, that of those things that she wishes, Allah put it a condition that for him not to remarry another wife, not for him to take on or ta'addud, for him to have multiple wives, that if she was to stipulate this, or she mentioned that he's not allowed to have like a slave girl as to benefit from her, then if the wife would put this as a condition, is it a valid condition for the husband that he has to comply with it and fulfill it? So they mentioned regarding concern that of the ulama, all it is a valid condition, as the author here have mentioned, based upon the hadith that have been mentioned. So of the ulama who state it is something which is valid, and they mentioned that the reason why they say it is valid, they said the concern is not ta'addud lil-zawj, that for the husband to have multiple wives, up to 4 wives. They mentioned that it is something which is not wajib. So to have up to 4 wives, multiple wives, not wajib. To have 1 wife, then that is more in line. So they mentioned, and it's something that is a haqq, a right upon him to take. So if you want to have 1 wife or to have multiple wives, it is something that it's within something which is allowed. So if he agrees to just restrict himself to 1 wife, they say it is allowed. Because having multiple wives, it is not wajib, it's mubah. Between the ulama, it's not something which is wajib. Having 1 wife is more in line with being of wajib, but to have multiple is not. So they mentioned that that is him negating one of his rights, him negating or forfeiting of his own rights. So of those who owe it is permissible. And they said the consequence of these concerning these conditions, as they mentioned, illa falaha fasq. If these conditions are placed between the couple and one was to break those conditions, then the other party have a right to nullify the marriage. So if that condition was set and agreed upon, and we use the word signed to, and then the other party, they broke that condition, then the other party, they have a right for them to nullify the marriage. They have a right to nullify the marriage. Aywa.
Among such valid conditions is when the bride when the bride stipulates that her suitor must not take her out of her house or homeland. Thus the man must not take her out except by her permission in accordance with her condition. Likewise, it is a valid condition if the bride stipulates that her future husband must not separate between her and her children or parents. This condition must be fulfilled by the husband, otherwise she has the right to rescind the marriage contract.
So this is the thing regarding these shurut fi nikah, that if those agreements are made and one party was to not comply, to break those conditions, then it means that the marriage could be nullified. Marriage could be nullified. So it is something which is allowed. It's allowed for the marriage to be nullified if those agreements were broken. Aywa.
It is also a valid condition if the bride stipulates a larger amount of dowry or that the dowry must be paid in a certain currency. This is a valid and binding condition that the groom must fulfill. Otherwise, she has the right to invalidate the marriage contract. Thus, she has the option to invalidate it anytime she likes, unless there is a sign of her consent, although being aware of this violation of anytime she likes, unless there is a sign of her consent, although being aware of his violation of her condition. In such a case...
It was a sign of her consent. You mentioned that. What it says there about her consent?
She has the option to invalidate it anytime she likes, unless there is a sign of her consent, although being aware of his violation of her condition.
So they mentioned regarding concerning our consent, 2 ways. As the Lord mentioned, so if they had this agreement or contract, but he's not fulfilling it, he has broken it. So either she can ask to have the marriage nullified, or she can somewhat or consent that she still wants him to continue, even though he has broken that agreement. That they mentioned one by qawl, by she saying that she's still, she's okay, she accepts that or pardon him for what he has done. So something by way of speech, or they mention indirectly by of intimacy. So if she's still having intimacy with him, then it's a sign that she's in agreement. So either by speech, which is clear, verbally, saying that she's in a disagreement, or saying that she's in agreement, or by if she have intimacy with him, then there's a sign that she still wants to remain in the marriage. So that's concerned what they mentioned regarding her consent. Aywa.
In such a case, her right of choice is to be disregarded. In this regard, Omar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu obliged a man to fulfill what his wife made as a condition before their marriage. The man said, "They, women, may divorce us then." Omar answered, "The judgment on right is based upon the stated conditions." This view is also supported by the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, in which he says, "Muslims must keep to the conditions they have made." The great scholar Ibn al-Qayyim said, "Such conditions must be kept as they are the worthiest to be fulfilled according to the principles of Sharia, Islamic law, reasoning and sound analogical deduction. Hence, if the woman does not consent to give herself to someone except on a certain condition, such a condition must be fulfilled. Otherwise, the marriage contract will not be established on her consent, and it will make her liable for uncalled for duties that are not enjoined on her by Allah and His Messenger.
So, sir, these conditions that they are valid, if these conditions are to be put in place before the marriage, so you might find that upon getting married, that they agreed upon certain terms and conditions between spouse and so and those they are recorded, and even today's time is best that they are recorded between the parties and signed to, or at the time or the time they'll get married. So after getting married, after Act and Nikah, then these conditions do not come into play. They don't have no validity after marriage. So, for example, the husband and wife, they've gotten married, and then after she said, okay, I'm going to put as a condition that you're unable to remarry. But this is after marriage. They're living for a year. Then she says, no, I don't want for you to get married. Then she doesn't, and said, no, that's not a condition that he has to fulfill, because it was not made prior. It was not made before them getting married, or at the time of the Act and Nikah. So anything that comes after, then it is not counted. It's not counted unless he chooses to comply with those. Aywa.
Second, invalid conditions. There are of two kinds. A, invalid conditions invalidating marriage. They involve three kinds. Ishqa marriage of exchanging women under guardianship. It is the type of marriage in which a guardian gives his daughter or a woman under his guardianship in marriage to another person on the condition that the other gives him his daughter or a woman under his guardianship in marriage too, and without any dowry paid by either. In this type of marriage, a woman is given in marriage in return for another. Scholars unanimously agree that such a marriage is prohibited. It is deemed invalid, and the couple must be legally separated in this case, whether they stated that there is no dowry paid or they kept silent about it. To illustrate, Ibn Omar radiallahu anhu narrated, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade ishqa marriage, which means that someone marries his daughter to another and later marries his daughter to the former without any dowry being paid by either. Related by
Shigar. So they mentioned regarding concern of, so you find that of a nikah is said to be fasid by way of it is not valid. So this type of marriage are not deemed to be valid marriage. So even if they have taken place, so if they have taken place, these examples are being mentioned, then the couples are to be separated because the marriage from its essence is not valid. So of the example you mentioned, Thalatha Anwa Thalatha, you mentioned nikah shigar. So as for nikah shigar, that he mentioned that a case where a person acting as the wali say to another person, I will marry the person as under my responsibility with the condition that your person under your responsibility marry to me, and there's no mahar in between. So you marry my people, and I marry your people, and there's no mahar. Then that is shigar. So there's no mahar in between. Aywa.
Sheikh Taqiyuddin said the unmistakable conclusion is that Allah prohibited the marriage of shigar. This is because the legal guardian must not give his daughter in marriage except to the one who is considered a suitable match for her. In addition, the guardian is supposed to look for her best interest, not just to satisfy his desire in such a marriage exchange. Moreover, the dowry is the bride's due right, not the guardian's. Therefore, neither the guardian nor the father is to give the woman in marriage unless in her best interest, not to favor his own desire and interest over hers. Otherwise, his guardianship is deemed invalid.
So they mentioned regarding Sheikh Taqiyuddin, Taqiyuddin, man huwa Taqiyuddin huna? Ibn Taymiyyah. So Ibn Taymiyyah, so the ulama mentioned regarding concerning shigar, that two things that make it that why it's considered shigar. that one, that they mention that there's no mahar between nam, and also that the person who's the wali for that woman is saying, you can marry the woman that I have responsibility for, with you giving me someone that you have responsibility for them. Nam, so it could be a father, it could be a non-father, but it's like you can marry the person that I'm responsible for, the woman that I'm responsible for, but you have to marry someone that you are responsible for. And also there's no mahar in between. So that's concerning what is shighar, that is the type of shighar. So they mentioned that so the person more looking for their own interest as the wali. So the thing of the waliship is that the wali, whether he's from a family member or a non-family member, of his interest, the wali is to look out for the best interest of that lady, whether it's a family member or a non-family member. So that's his purpose, not per se what's for his best interest. Now, so not look out for his own best interest in trying to get her married, but also he's getting something from it, which is he getting married also. He's getting himself marry off to someone who's interested in the person under his care. So that's concerning what they mentioned. So that marriage is considered to be invalid. So if what did occur, no mahar, and that type of marry my people and marry my people, I can marry your people with those stipulation, then it is not valid. It is not valid marriage, and both those who are involved have to be separated. They have to be separated. Aywa.
When the guardian exchanges the woman under his guardianship in return for another, he then is not looking for her best interest. Thus he is acting as if he is giving her in marriage in return for some money that would be his, not hers. Both cases are impermissible. Consequently, if he pretends a dowry was paid as a way to make this marriage lawful while in fact intending ishqar marriage, it will not be permissible, as stated by Imam Ahmed. This is because his real aim is not to marry another woman in return for her marrying his daughter or any woman under his guardianship. In this respect, Sharia states that such a behavior of the guardian is only intended to serve his own desire, not the woman's best interest, whether there is a dowry or not, as maintained by Muawiyah and others. However, Ahmed views it permissible only when there is a dowry which is not just intended to be a means of cheating, provided the woman's interest with her regard to her due dowry has been considered.
Omar, why do they use the word sadaqa?
Yes, sadaqa. Sometimes the word mahar uses as sadaqa.
Okay.
So the word so you have mahar, and also sadaqa is used as mahar.
Still, if there is a certain dowry given separately to each of the two brides, without any intention of cheating, provided that each of the two brides gives her consent, such a marriage then is deemed valid, as the causative of harm is no longer there.
So that I mentioned, so they said the other thing with shighar is that mahar is removed and exchange of woman from one side to the next side. So they mentioned that if there's certain conditions that one, for example, brother A wants to marry someone, wants to marry someone from a certain family, but also they are someone they want to marry from their family to your family. Now, if there's all the sides agree upon it, even though there's two for now, and also the mahar is given and each are in agreement, then that marriage is valid. So shighar, if they're trying to remove regarding concerning that the mahar and exchange family member with another family, then that's shighar. But if both two families, that person want to marry someone from the next person's family, and they're going to marry someone from your family or you, then that's permissible if there's agreed upon and there's no form of trying to cheat each other, and also mahar is given. Then it is valid. It is valid. In that case, it is valid marriage. So if mahar is given, then it becomes valid, and both sides agree without trying to cheat the system, then it becomes valid. So that's one example of those type of nikah that's said to be invalid. That is said to be invalid. Aywa.
Number 2, muhalil marriage.
What do they call it in English?
Muhalil.
Muhallil marriage. Muhallil
marriage. It is a kind of unlawful marriage when
nikah tahlil. There's a nikah at-tahleel, as we'll explain inshallah. Aywa.
It is a kind of unlawful marriage when a man marries a woman who is divorced irrevocably for 3 times, just to make her lawful to be remarried to a former husband on the condition that he will divorce her once this proposed purpose is achieved. Whether there is a condition stated in the marriage or agreed upon before concluding the contract or not, such marriage is deemed invalid anyway according to the following hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said to his companions, "Shall I tell you about the borrowed billy goat?" The companion said, "Yes, O Messenger of Allah." He ﷺ said, "It is the muhallil. May Allah curse the muhallil and the muhallil lahu."
Aywa.
Related by Ibn Majah, Al-Hakim and other compilers of hadith.
And Hakim will hadith to be authentic. So this next type of marriage that are considered to be invalid that he mentioned regarding nikah at-tahleel, which as they have explained regarding that a woman that she's have been divorced from her husband 3 times. So both of them are unable to what? Marry. So the wife or that lady have been divorced by her husband over 3 separate times. So now they have an irrevocable divorce where they cannot go back together unless she remarries someone that marriage ended with also before she can go back to her previous ex-husband. So tahleel is where now someone, a third party, by way of it was done by way of agreement, either by way of the wife. She agrees with this person, another guy, that he will marry her. Then after marry her, he has to also have intimacy with her, then divorce her, so she can go back to her previous husband. With me? So in those cases, so whether this is something agreed upon or the plan, a part of that plan include she and her wali in trying to somewhat get her off married with the intention that is just make her lawful for her previous husband. Now, so the person does marry her, have intimacy with her, then divorce her, so she can go back to her previous husband. Then that becomes tahleel. So he's trying to make her lawful for her ex. He's trying to make it lawful for ex, and it's something agreed upon. So you have, like I will discuss concerning a different case and scenario. So say you have a case which is agreed upon. That was the plan. So it was a marriage. She got married, but the condition of the marriage is that for the one who her husband to marry her, divorce her, so she can go back to her previous husband. So she could be a part of the plan, or her wali is a part of the plan, or that husband is a part of the plan. They all agree upon this system. Then all of them are involved in haram. So you could have a case where it is known to her and also her wali, but the guy that she's doing so, he doesn't know. Then if the case, so you have those cases that may occur. You have those cases that what they're doing is haram regarding that trying to get her lawful to get back to her ex. Then all of those circumstances or cases are haram. But have a case if the husband that she married, that wasn't his plan, but she may have that idea in her head. So he married her in genuine marriage. Not per se for her to go back to her husband, but that was in her head. Then
You mean she conspired? She was conspiring.
She's conspiring, you understand? But he wasn't a part of the plan. So for example, she and her ex conspire that marry this particular person, who, you understand, so that I can get back to you, so quick marriage with him and make him leave you. But he wasn't a part of the husband wasn't a part of what? The conspiracy. But he married her in a genuine way. Then that marriage is still valid even though she have bad intent. Or with whoever else. So the marriage is still valid.
Okay, let's say example C, she's conspiring on her own.
Yeah, I'm saying, she's considered,
Neither the ex, nor the new, or the ex know of her.
and it's still valid. Because the marriages with husband, so if everything went across and was done proper, and the husband per se wasn't a part of that plan, or that conspiracy, then the marriage is still valid because his thing is to marry her, to be with her, not to make her permissible for someone else. Now, but she may have that in her mind. Now, she might do things to him, or try to see understand, to kind of somewhat to make the things end quick.
When there's multiple parties conspiring.
It could be multiple or just one person, or few.
How can one person?
Then comes the husband. The example that the one's going to marry her, that's his intent. That he knows that case, that for example, that's his best friend. His best friend, but they're not into, but he is planning to marry her, divorce her, so she can go back to his best friend because you know his best friend wants to remarry her, but because of circumstance he cannot.
Yeah, that's what I understand that, but I'm saying if he does that, but two other parties are not aware that he's doing that, then the marriage is still valid, but he's doing that.
Let me say, because his part that he said, yes, he's doing it, but the marriage says that marriage is not valid because the one involves, it doesn't require everyone to be a part of it. It's just some. And something could be from her side or from the guy doing it.
So that's what I mean, there has to be two.
Not necessarily two. I'm saying, in this case, she don't know the plan, nor her ex. So I'm saying, scenario, that's a scenario. Brother, you, brother X, and brother A and B are very good friends. And you know a situation that brother A recently divorced his wife, but they're unable to go back together. But they know that brother A, who divorced his wife, who's his best friend, he wants to go back with her, and she wants him. You understand? She's in what? So what he does, have a plan. What I'm going to do, marry her, right, and then divorce her so she can remarry my best friend.
Okay, now for me to do that, they don't know I'm going to do that, but because it's my brethren, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to do it for my brethren. He don't know, she don't know. So I court her, I marry her. Yeah? That marriage is bartered.
Yeah.
So if they marry now, after I've done that thing, their marriage is not valid.
Hey, Mr. Dave, that's the thing that comes with it. Hey, that's a part of the problem. Hey, that's a part of the problem in that sense. Hey. If they got married not knowing what was your intent, and you understand that's a different thing. But if they become known as to what was taking place, then there's a different ruling.
Number 3, the marriage dependent on a future condition. An example of such marriage is when the guardian of the woman says to the suitor, I will let you marry her when the first of so and so month comes, or if her mother consents. Such a marriage contract is deemed invalid, for marriage is considered a contract of compensation represented in the dowry that makes it lawful for the man to enjoy a woman as a wife. Therefore, it is invalid to make such a contract dependent on a future possibility. Similarly, it is invalid to make the marriage contract temporary, as when a guardian says to the suitor, I will let you marry her on the condition that you divorce her tomorrow, or I will let you marry her for a month or a year. Such temporary marriage is what is called marriage of mutta, a temporary marriage intended for just having sexual intercourse. Shaykh Taqiyuddin said, all the many elaborate mutawatir, continuously recurrent hadiths agree that Allah exalted bihi prohibited the marriage of mutta, temporary marriage, after it had been made lawful. Moreover, Al-Qurtubi said, all hadiths agree that the time when the marriage of mutta was lawful did not last for long, as it was soon prohibited. Then both the Salaf, early Muslims, and the Khalaf, late Muslim scholars, unanimously agree on its prohibition, except for those scholars of Rafida, whose opinion counts for nothing.
And what I mentioned, those scholars, they can delete the word scholars. From what I said, those scholars of Rafida, they said the scholars of the Rafida, I can delete the word, right, doesn't mention Rafida or Rawafid. So the overall thing that he mentioned of those type of marriage are considered to be invalid is a marriage where regarding that certain stipulation are set regarding that either reaching something occurring or by way of a certain set date. Now, would you call al-muta? So you have certain like mudda, a certain time span or time frame is set to the marriage. If a month after a month or a year, then automatically we're divorced, so the marriage is invalid. then that is said to be muta. So the Shaykh mentioned in brief regarding concern this matter regarding nikah al-muta, that initially in Islam it was something that was allowed, but then soon after it was made forbidden. They said Yawm al-Khaybar. So in Yawm al-Khaybar, which was the year of the 70th of the Hijrah, it was made forbidden. So since that time, Khaybar and what came after, then it was impermissible for a person to engage in muta marriages. Both said it's not that, and is agreed upon ijma bayna ahli sunnah concerning the salaf wal khalaf, regarding concerning the ulama of the past, and also those who came after them, all agree upon the impermissibility of al-muta, except for al-Rafida. Now, except for Rawafid, that they still practice this thing and see it as something as one of the shi'ar, one of the things, a symbol of their religion. Now, a symbol of their religion. So they still practice. It's still a practice that is common, or still a practice amongst them, or it's still legal amongst them. So overall, for Ahl Sunnah, it is not something of the practice of Ahl Sunnah. It's not a practice of Ahl Sunnah regarding this type of marriage. That's the third type that he mentioned. So just to add something that are sometimes discussed in the books of the fuqaha, that the Shaykh did not mention it, but we just add it because sometimes it occurs. What they refer to as an-nikah bin-niyat talaq. So nikah bin-niyat talaq. So is marrying with the intention of divorcing the woman. So this husband may get married to the woman, but in his mind is intending soon after to divorce her at a certain point. So it could be for various reasons. Could it be the person that they mention cases, for example, a person might travel to a country to study. So his intention, while I'm there studying, or for example, they're working for a while, I'll get married to this person while I'm there. Soon as I finish my task there, my study there, my job there, and when I finish, I'm gone, or marriage, and I'm divorcing her. So that's his intent. And one of says like a temporary thing. Soon as that I fulfill that thing, then I divorce her. So they mention, but that's with him only. So it's not known to her, not to the wali, or to anyone else. So it's the intent. So there's something that is with him only, which is an-nikah bi-niyat talaq. So I'm getting married with the intention of divorcing her when I'm at a certain point. So with this matter, so the surah is clear, the picture is clear. So with this, a discussion between the ulama regarding concerning with this matter, that you have two view on the ulama on this matter. So they mentioned that of the ulama, what is this al-madhab, which is the method of the Hanabila, that this type of marriage, it is haram. So the person who does so is doing something which is haram. So even though it is marriage, by way of the act of nikah, everything is placed. So he court her, by sense of he proposed, she accept, that he approached the wali also, they are in agreement with her family, he give her a mahar. So everything is done, we said, upfront, correct. But in his mind, he's going to divorce her soon after. So the ulama who concerned to know that practice concerning nikah, muharram is of the nikah considered said to be haram, invalid. And that's a view taken by Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, as Imam Abu Dawood narrated upon Ahmad that he owed it to be haram also. Mardawi also who said that Ahmad rahimahullah owed the view that also mentioned that huwa shabi' bil mut'ah. That also it is stated that Ahmad rahimahullah, it is shabi', it is resemblance, it resembles that of, or similar to that of muta. So it's not exactly, so it is similar to that of muta, which is compared to that of muta. So that's concerned of you, Ahmad rahimahullah. Then also of those who take this position, this haram, Awza'i, and also of contemporary Ibn Uthaymeen. So of contemporaries, Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah take that it is something which is haram to be done. One, they say of the reason is a form of tadlis, a form of deception of the woman. So you're deceiving the people who are involved. So they are not privy to your intent, but it's a form of you're deceiving the people from the start. So it's so deception that of this also with this type of nikah, for example, the woman wants to get pregnant immediately, you're going to abandon her and the kids. Also they mentioned that again, shabi'a is a form of, they see it as a form of muta, or resemble that of muta, type of thing. And also that the person is not entering with the mind of fulfilling concerning all the things that come with marriage, which is you go in there for the long run. And that so the person not approaching things with content of trying to fulfill the maqasid, the objective of marriage, which is you want to be there for, be there for her and she for you for the long run, as they say. So that's a temporary thing, but you're looking to get a permanent marriage. You want to be with this woman, you want to build a family with her and achieve concerning those things of marriage. So with that intention, you don't have those objective in mind. So the reason why they say it is something which is haram. Then that's the first opinion. Then the second opinion, and because those married also says shabi and muta, that you're just there on a temporary basis. It's a temporary thing. It's not for a permanent or something which is lasting. The second opinion, jawaz. So the second opinion of the ulama, that this type of zawaj, biniyat talaq, it is permissible. And that is called, that's the view taken by jumhur of the ulama, majority of the ulama is of this opinion, that it is allowed, it is permissible. And also you'll find that of those who, of this view, they mention Manqul and Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ibn Qudam rahimahullah, he mentioned, وَهُوَ قَوْلَ عَامَةَ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. That is the view taken by the majority of the ulama. So the majority of the ulama, they see that, because even though that's his intention, but as for what is involved regarding the marriage and how it is done, it's still valid. And his intention could change. So he might initially have that intent, but then eventually could change to see it as still a valid marriage with them. And also that they said of others, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah is of the view that is something which is permissible. Shaykh bin Baz also of those who see it as something which is allowed. So I said that nikah is still valid because all the criteria of marriage was fulfilled, and possibility that he may not fulfill his intent, his intention. He may not. So generally mentioned, it is something which is allowed with the jumhur of the ulama. And you will find that today, years ago, I have a risala about that some of the mashaykh that have written a book specifically on this topic. So you have books that have been written specific on this topic that they'll go more into details as a general summary of that masala regarding an-nikah bidniyat at-talaq, an-nikah bidniyat at-talaq. Aywa.
B. Invalid conditions that do not invalidate marriage. There is a condition that in marriage contract that involves violating any of the woman's rights. Such a condition is invalid though the marriage itself is still deemed valid. Examples of such invalid conditions that do not invalidate marriage are the cases when the man stipulates that there will be no dowry for the woman, or that there will be no alimony for her, or that the nights that he will spend with her will be less than those of her fellow wife. Though such conditions are invalid, they do not invalidate the marriage, as they are of additional meaning to the marriage contract. Thus, mentioning them in the contract is not necessary, and ignoring them is not harmful.
So I mentioned regarding concerning of those type of conditions that I mentioned. So the ones that I mentioned first are those ones that invalid in nikah. So those the ones that I mentioned previously regarding shigar and the others that tahleel, that those will deem the marriage to be invalid from the act itself, from the actual marriage itself. As for the second type that you mentioned concerning ash-shurut al-fasid, that is the condition are considered to be themselves to be improper, but the marriage is still valid. So it's conditions that are improper, not proper to be done or to have in place, but if they're there, the marriage is still deemed to be valid. So of those things, he mentions an example regarding that in the marriage contract that they may stipulate, or one person, for example, the wife, I don't want certain rights, don't want to provide for me this or that. I don't want to, so she's forfeiting some of her rights. So they mention that if those things are stipulated and agreed upon, by the parties involved, the marriage is still valid, but those conditions are not proper. They're not proper. Aywa.
For instance, if the suitor makes a condition that the woman must be a Muslim and then she turns out to be one of the people of the scripture, i.e. Christian or a Jew, the marriage in this case is valid and the husband has the choice whether to invalidate or not.
So in that case he mentioned, so that's a lot of, so you find that if we said the first one regarding the woman, she's forfeiting her rights. So it can be the husband forfeiting her rights. Now, so for example, if she chooses to forfeit of her rights, regarding for example, that as mentioned here, nafaka, she's forfeiting him maintaining her financially. Now, or she forfeited that you don't have to spend all the time with me, you can, so of those things, if that, or they were agreed upon mahar, then she said after the mahar, she said, you don't have to pay it. So for example, they agree upon the mahar, and it was, but then after they got married, she said, okay, no, after they got married, she said, you don't have to pay it. I forfeit that. Then she can do so, because that's her rights. So that's she forfeiting her own rights. Or I mentioned that if he has multiple wives, and she said, okay, you don't have to give us equal time. You can spend more time with her. That's something that she can forfeit, right? Then, so I said, because that's her forfeiting her rights. But if it's him pulling those rights from her, then he doesn't have that right. Now, it's not for him to force her regarding those things, or him not fulfilling those things. It's not for him to do so, because that's her rights. Then I mentioned the second scenario, the case regarding that the husband might stipulate for the husband to the wife that she be a Muslimah. The next thing you know that she's a Kitabiyah. So it's still valid because he's still within that group of people that he's allowed to marry. So ideally he wanted a Muslimah, but it turned out to be she deceived him and said she's a Kitabiyah, or it wasn't made clear, then it's still, she's still of those group of people that he's allowed to marry. So if he chooses to continue through the marriage, he can do so. If he chooses to forfeit it, then he can do so. Or annul it, then he can do so, because she's still of the class of people that is allowed to marry. But if the case is that Muslimah, then found that she's a mushrika, that she's a atheist, then what? It's invalid. It's invalid because she's not of that group of people he's allowed to marry. Or she's Hindu and the likes. Then no. The marriage they have to be separated. Aywa.
Similarly, if the suitor stipulates that the woman must be a virgin, a pretty woman, or a woman of noble origin, and then he discovers that she is otherwise, he has the right to invalidate the marriage as his condition is not fulfilled.
Those are personal preferences. Those are personal preferences. Aywa.
That's it, done.
That's it?
Yeah.
The next, there's not more? Nope. Okay, then from mine, there's a few more.
Oh.
But as I mentioned regarding concern to that, so the other one that I mentioned regarding that if a person was to get, so there's examples. That is giving more example regarding that marrying a woman that you thought that she was a free woman and she's not. So you have those examples. So you have examples regarding, so in those cases, that if the person has stipulated certain conditions and they will not fulfill, they have a right to annul the marriage. If they choose to go through, then it varies, but they have a right to annul the marriage if those stipulations were not fulfilled or conditions were not met. So that's concerning those matters regarding, so in a marriage, that it shows that there's conditions that can be set, but they have to be agreed upon. Ideally, it should be done before the marriage. Anything after the marriage, then it is either you agree upon it, but one can enforce something that was not agreed upon initially, unless both parties then afterwards agree to those conditions. So that's concerning, but it shows that permissibility that for the spouses they can stipulate certain conditions. Some of them are at times invalid because they go against the core of the marriage, vows and and objectives. And of those that are considered to be valid, those that are said to be valid and a person has to fulfill them, and those that conditions that they themselves are not proper, but if they're done, the marriage is still valid. They're not per se maybe deemed to be proper or befitting, but if done, the marriage is still valid. So that inshallah ta'ala, he discussed of those things that sometimes occur in marriage and stipulation. So we have in the West, which is the more common practice they call prenuptial agreements. So they know that either one of the party may be wealthy. And most of the time it occurs when one party may be wealthy, or a person of certain standing. So they want that the other party, you understand, not to take from the other person either at divorce. If they were to divorce, then that person is not allowed to take what the person already, from the other person. Or if they were to die, then you're not allowed to inherit from them. So as for the inheritance, then Islam wouldn't recognize that as a prenup. Because when you get married, then the rules of inheritance, they're somewhat set. So if she's your wife, legitimate wife, then she's entitled to inherit from her husband and vice versa. So you can't try to cut them out in their inheritance in a prenup. And the second case of prenup regarding the case if there was a divorce. That, for example, in most of that, if she's the one of less wealth and he have wealth, that she's not allowed to, in over here, the person is entitled to what? Half your wealth. According to rules over here, they said, no, if we have a divorce, then the other person is entitled to half your wealth, then you are not entitled to that. So said, no.
So Islamically, you just leave your
Because Islamically, regarding concerns, no, there's no half if you divorce. So, for example, if you get, the husband or the wife says the husband is wealthy, he's a billionaire. Just he's a billionaire, and she's what? I have not that commoner.
Yeah, common.
Have they still use those words? So basic. But he's a billionaire, and so he put as a prenup with her that, or you're not. If we divorce, you're not entitled to take anything from my wealth. Or vice versa. She's a billionaire and the husband is a commoner, a simple person. Then with those prenup, with Islam, in divorce, there's no rule regarding that you're entitled. So in divorce cases, you're not entitled to the person's wealth that they already had. So in Islam, you don't need that in place, because when a divorce, it doesn't mean that because we're divorced, then we have to share our wealth. And for now, regardless if it was something you acquired before we got married.
What if he's acquired it during the marriage?
If it's acquired before, if it's something that they work together, for example, we have a case where they were married, but he's a person of a specialized field. Now, when he got married, they were together, then he got a job and he has a high-paying job. Now, after they got married, then his duty as a husband is to maintain her regarding food, clothes, shelter, according to his means. So if he can afford a lot, he pays. But after marriage, if that's his earnings, then she's still not allowed half. Just the same could be with her. With me? No. So even though they got divorced, you're not automatically deserving half the other person's wealth. And it's something, you got a business together. Unless it was a business together, that you have acquired that wealth through that business, that both of you are partners, then that's different. But by the person each acquiring their own wealth, it doesn't mean that you're entitled to half. Aywa.
Question, can I just get that? A near to talaq, that one, the ulama that were favored, that is not permissible.
We have, so said Ibn Uthaymeen of contemporaries, we have,
It's not permissible.
they're not permissible. Aye. So we have Awza'i, so that they mentioned of Ahmed bin Hanbal. They mentioned Mardawi, حيث قال هو شبيه المتع, then Awza'i, and also Ibn Uthaymeen, of those that I mentioned here. So either Mardawi mentioned an Ahmed when he says Shabih al-Muta, but said that majority is of the view that it is permissible. Said they have books that were written specifically on that topic. They will maybe go into more detail as to other names. Aywa.
So my question is, in the case of someone that's one, does that mean they're committing zina while they're in that relationship?
Aywa, al-muta. Nam said that with muta, if it is done why people sunnah. Nam, knowing, then that's, you understand, they said shubha. So if it is done knowingly, then either the state then will deal that matter as they think is best as a form of punishment. Nam, and if it's did out of ignorance, then again the state will separate them. But if it's done out of knowledge, then the state to see what's a suitable punishment for such cases. Because it's something which is abrogated. And what's done, then the state, the judge, he'll be the one now to look into that matter and offer what he thinks to be the most suitable punishment.
On conditions that...
But in that case, both will be separated. As for the punishment, then that's a different to see as to what the states deem to be appropriate.
On conditions that invalidate marriage. If a man said, okay, I agree for you to marry my daughter, or the condition is, except if the mom accepts, you said that's impermissible.
I said that?
I think that's one of the...
What I mentioned?
Now.
No, okay. So I said that person so that I'll repeat the case.
Now.
Repeat what you just said.
The man accepted that
So a man proposed to a lady, and her father is in agreement. But they said that they need the mom.
So it's upon the condition of the mom to accept.
Now, if they stick that as a condition that is that even though her consent is not needed for it to be valid, but that was stipulated a condition, they said that then they have to just go through that process, and they won't be able to get married until she's in agreement, because that may be the initial understanding. Now it would be like an understanding that for it to be valid, then the mom have to give consent. Said that that's to be looked into. Comes to the mom consent is not a condition. It's not a condition. But if they stipulate the understanding, I won't marry your mother, said I won't marry you until your mother agrees, then that's between them. That's a condition they have put, that he has put upon moving things forward. So if that's the condition he puts or agreement, then he shouldn't until she have given her agreement or consent. Clear? But bear in mind, I said, for the mom to give her consent is not a condition. Nam is not a condition.
So it's still permissible for the girl to marry with the father's consent, even though he's saying being to the mom.
Said if the husband or the suitor, he says to the father and to the family, I'll only marry the girl. Everyone give their consent. The father's in agreement. So they haven't been married yet. So it'll be the case, I'm understanding they are not yet married. So he's saying, I'll marry her with the condition that the mother also is in agreement. Now, so said that's a condition. Said that if he put as a condition, then he has to fulfill it, and he won't be able to marry until the mom gives her consent, because there's a stipulation that he have put to marry her off. But was said as a general thing is not a condition. For example, the father is in agreement, but the mother, she have her objection. It's not a condition for them to marry. The mother have to give her consent, because the mother might disagree. For example, you have a case, that's a case where husband and wife are separated. The parents, the father, they have children. The daughter is going to marry the daughter. She's in agreement. The father, everyone is in agreement. But the mother, she says no. The father doesn't have to get her consent to marry her. Clear? Clear? Hey. But if so that's that case.
Okay, in terms of ta'lim, and you said two people are going to separate, yeah? Two people that are separated, divorce, yeah? And then they can aspire, marry, and then so she can go back to the husband. What if it's the case that, what do you call it if they're not divorced yet, but they're on their last one, it's coming to the end, yeah? But they're still married, not divorced yet, and then they do the same conspiring, then what?
So what I understand that you have a couple together,
Yes.
right? They have 2 divorces against them,
Yes.
and they have a third. But things may be between them. They're saying, okay, if we were to reach a third divorce, then let's put this, then, you understand, we're going to do this in the future. You get married. If the third occur, you get married so I can, and get divorced so I can remarry. They said, then that's again haram.
Oh, is there a name for that as well?
Aims about, by way of the idea they have is tahleel.
Okay.
It's a concern, the agreement between themselves.
It doesn't have to be outside of them being
No,
divorced.
while
they're married.
No, in most part occur after the divorce, but if they have it, even before they know the situation, we're going through rough times, we may get divorced, so let's putting that in place from now between us. Then it starts that the bad seed was sown from them. You understand? Because they already start to have that agreement between themselves. So in that case, so look at the case concerned as the act itself regarding, yes, in most cases may occur that after divorce, you understand, they want to go back together. They were divorced, they want to go back together, they want to find a way around things. You understand? But in the case, we might find that they're on the brink of, you understand, we could get divorced, things are bad for us. If it occurs, we put these things in place, then yes, between both of them, Allah mustaan. Then it says tahleel.
I don't understand how people could agree to that. How could you agree to someone else to sleep with your ex?
And say with the condition of tahleel that they have to sleep. So I said, I want to say with, so I said with it, other thing with tahleel, with the tahleel, it's not just marrying her, he has to sleep with her. So he has to taste of her, meaning they have to have intimacy. So that's the thing. But I'm saying, because of the mindset, he said when it comes to emotion, sometimes shaitan gets in between people. In emotion, sometimes shaitan gets in between people. But it occurs. I said it occurs. I don't know of any case, but it can occur.
I heard they have a committee for this here somewhere in London.
A committee.
A committee where they do this. I read it through.
I mean, committee that does what?
The conversation on YouTube, someone was mentioning it.
But it's a committee to do what? To look into these cases or carry out cases?
Carry on.
Then that committee is shaitan.
There was those
Like a body of people who does this to people.
podcast people do it when Imam Asian from the Asian community was mentioning it to this brother.
That you have people who fix those type of situation.
Yeah.
They are fixers for those type of things. A shaitan.
Special guy.
So the state needs to get that guy on Islamically and deal with him properly. Huh?
How about if after the nikah, the condition for the wedding is met? You find out after the nikah that the condition for the wedding wasn't met.
What was the condition?
For example, you have a Riva sister, and she says her father is a Muslim. And so then you agree with that, with the nikah, but then after the nikah, you find out her father wasn't a Muslim.
It's not that to be redone. Then to be both parts again to be redone. There's a shubha in that one. So it to be redone completely again and getting the right, a proper wali in place. So if you have no family members who are Muslim, then if they still agree upon getting married, is getting a wali from the Muslim community to act on our behalf.
From then, the marriage is invalid until they hear again.
So they have to redo everything again because there was no proper, the wali was an invalid wali, who's a non-Muslim.